Hi everybody, welcome back to Resin Bell. Today I'm going to be making a mold of these Halloween cabochons. I found this cheap little jewelry set, Halloween jewelry set at the grocery store, and I decided that I really wanted to make a mold of these just to see how it goes. There are all kinds of different molds of those available, but I just kind of want to make my own just to have one for myself. And I will be using Mold Star 15 to create this mold, and stay tuned. I'm going to be going over a few tips that probably nobody else has, so stay tuned for that, and I'll be right back. Alright guys, let's get into this. We're going to be making a mold of these little cabochons here. They're little Halloween like skull ladies, and it kind of has like, kind of like she's carved out. So what we're going to need is we're going to need some mold making material. This is a 2-part silicone mold. This is Mold Star 15 slow, so plenty of work time on that. Pair of gloves, protect your hands because that Mold Star is sticky stuff, and a mixing container that has some graduated symbols on it so you know how much of each part. Gonna need a glue gun, a hot glue gun, something to mold, which I have, and this is probably the part that nobody else has. So this is one of something that I just kind of lucked upon. Most people will use like a contact adhesive for their bottom layer, and I have realized that you can use one of these Cricut cutting mats. It's just one of those reusable kind of heavy cutting mats that you can get for your Cricut machine or your the different cutters, and I'm going to be using the back of that as my mold area instead of the contact paper or tape or whatever. The benefit to that is that you're not going to get all those ripples that you get when you mold with tape. Sometimes you can get ripples in your mold. The other benefit is that it's reusable. You can use it as many times as you want. You never have to buy another one. Because it is so bendable, you can just peel the hot glue right off, and it has like a textured surface so that the glue has something to stick to and won't peel away, so you won't have any accidents, no seepage of your mold material. So that's going to be the base for my mold, and let's get into this. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to detach the little cabochons from the jewelry pieces. I can just take them off of this loop and mold the entire thing, but this is super thin. It is like paper thin, so I don't think that will mold very well. So I'm going to be doing just the cabochons, however you say that word. So I'm just going to pop those off of the back, and it doesn't take much. They're just on with a tiny little bit of glue. So I'm sticking the end of my X-Acto knife in, and I'm twisting it. I'm not pushing it in. So that's what I need from them. And I'm going to take my little hot glue gun over here, and I'm just going to glue those down. Push them down really good. This is a low temp. This is low temp and a high temp glue gun. I've got it on low temperature right now. I'm just going to scrape away any glue that comes out. See? Those are on there. They're not coming off right now. The benefit to another benefit is that you're using a cutting mat, a mat that is specifically made for cutting. So if you have any glue and you need to cut it off, you're not going to damage, you're not going to cut through. You can just use an X-Acto knife. So those are the ones that I'm going to be doing. Okay, so now that I've got those glued down, I'm just going to take the packaging that came with the set because it has this nice shiny cardboard on the other side. And I am just going to cut it about like this, a couple of strips. Let's see how far that'll take me. It's almost big enough, but not quite, so I'm going to cut another strip. Okay, I glue these together. And I'm setting them up so that I can get a like an even side on the bottom side, so that the bottom side is straight. Okay. And the next thing I gotta do is put a little glue right there. To get me started. A little bit of glue right there. Let that cool. Bring this side around. Fan it a little bit. Get it nice and cooled off. And then continue around the other side. Glue those ends together. Okay, so now I'm going to be putting these two parts on here. This is part B, I'm going to fill it. This is a 1-to-1, so I'm going to be filling it. Okay. And then this is part A. Okay. So I have both of them in there. And now you just gotta stir. I'm going to make sure you scrape the bottom and the sides so you can see there's a little bit of white here, and then there's some dark blue, and then there's a little bit more white. Hopefully you can see that okay. You want to make sure you stir all of that up, but just kind of scrape your sides really good. The Moldstar 15 slow is pretty nice because you have plenty of time to work. So if you're just starting out with making your own molds, I would definitely recommend that. They do sell smaller amounts. I buy it by the bucket from the manufacturer, and but you can get smaller amounts just to kind of test it and play with it, you know, from like Amazon. And I'll leave a link that has that in the description box below. You can check it out if you want, as well as some of my other favorite resin products. I have like a little gateway to like some of my favorites, and I am not sponsored by any of those products. I'm not affiliated with any of them. They're just the ones that I personally like to use. So you want to stir this well but carefully. You don't want to, you try not to incorporate very many bubbles into it, which is easier said than done sometimes, but it's a very easy to use kind of mold material if you follow the rules. Already my hands are itching because of these gloves. They're the only ones I've got, so, you know, a lot of people were upset because I wasn't wearing them in one of my videos, and sometimes I can't wear gloves, so, you know, I do what's best for me. You guys do what's best for you. Always recommend that you do wear gloves if you're able. So that's pretty mixed. I'll give it a few more mixes here. Scrape the sides again, and then we can start pouring in, making our mold. Give it a couple of taps just to kind of bring those air bubbles. You can see the air bubbles are starting to come to the surface. See how they're coming up? So if you're mixing small batches like this, then you can do that easily. If not, you can use a pressure pot to get those bubbles out, or you can just let it set for a little bit. Okay, I'm going to call that good. Now, another thing you can do while you're pouring a mold is you can pour it from up high and get as small of a stream as you can going down. But the first thing I'm going to do before I do that is to take a little bit of the mold material and kind of sort of paint it into and onto the fine details, because these little things have a lot of little cut-in sections, and I think it would be easy to get bubbles down in there even if you're pouring really slow. So I'm just going to work this into all those really fine details, just a little bit at a time. It doesn't take long. You don't have to be perfect. I'm just kind of putting it into all those really fine details. Like I said, you probably don't have to do this step. This is just something I like to do just to make sure my molds come out, because, you know, mold material is kind of expensive. But it's worth it, you know, when you're wanting to make your own molds to create things. Maybe you have you know, a vintage piece of costume jewelry, or you know, some kind of a little bauble that has a unique design to it that you can't buy a mold for. This comes in handy for that sort of thing. This one, I just wanted to try making this mold and see how it would turn out. When I saw that jewelry at the Harps grocery store, I just decided that I needed to try that out and see what I can make from it. And you can take any kind of cabochons, however you say that. I always have a hard time saying that. I always say it wrong. But you can take any kind of jewelry or buttons or all kinds of neat stuff that you could make your own molds of. I've made molds of antique buttons. There's some really cool designs on some antique buttons that you could make cool molds of. Okay, I'm just about done here. Just making sure that all of my little spots that could create a bubble are kind of filled in. And I like that. That's pretty good. So now I'm going to start higher up and let it, I'm going to pick one spot inside my mold and just let it fill from that point. So I'm going to try to get it over here. Pour it a little bit slower than that. But the higher up you get it, that fine stream, it kind of pops the bubbles as it's pouring. So we're just going to fill that up. And I have, per usual, mixed up too much. That looks pretty good. Okay, so I had to add just a tiny little bit more glue around this edge. So always when you're first pouring your molds and you're doing it with the glue method, make sure you watch the edges very carefully, because those are going to be your biggest points of failure. If you see any kind of blue underneath, you know, your glue, go ahead and add some more glue around the edge and kind of, you know, fan it out a little bit. So hopefully you can see what I'm talking about here. I want you guys to have all the information so you can see right in that section right there. You can see down underneath there was some blue. That means some of that mold material has seeped underneath the cardboard and it was trying to seep out. So I went ahead and added a little bit more hot glue around this edge and plenty far around and farther back, just to make sure that it's not going to seep out. But then you want to watch it and make sure, because you know it can make a big mess if it escapes its boundaries. So better to add a little bit more glue while you're being watchful than to have it completely fail on you. So we're just going to let that set for 4 hours, and in 4 hours it should be cured, and we'll demold that baby and see what it looks like. Okay, so I went ahead and made up this one really quick before my silicone cured, and I just pulled some jemmies and things out of my stash just to try some different ones, and kind of glued them down and made another little mold casing here out of that packaging. And so now we just gotta wait for that to cure. Best thing about this stuff is once it's cured, this stuff will just pull right out and you can reuse your cups. So that's pretty cool. All right, I'll see you guys when these are cured. Okay, let's test this out so you can see how easily that cleans up when you're done. Just peels right off. And let's peel this off as well. Just pops right off. Let's see. Just a little bit of cleanup on this mold. Just gonna clean up the edges a little bit. Looking pretty good. I just gotta clean up those edges, cut those little pieces off, and looking pretty good. I'm gonna test it out. Okay, so we're back with this, and I just picked up this little cuticle trimmer. It was $1 at the Dollar Tree. I probably wouldn't recommend this one because it's not the most sharp cuticle trimmer, but I mean it does work just fine. But if you are doing molds for somebody else, I would recommend you get a better quality, like sharper one. These are just for me, so it don't matter to me. So I've already trimmed this one. You can see just how faceted we got, just how shiny and lovely those are going to be. I love the shape of the moon ones, very faceted. Gonna make some shiny ones, and this one's just a round, and this one's just a round. Smooth. And so I haven't trimmed this one yet, so I'm going to show you the process on that right now. So you basically just take your cuticle trimmer and you carefully and slowly slide it around until you get rid of all of those excess little bits. And you just keep sliding it around until you get a nice even cut. Like I said, it works just fine, but I'm keeping an even pressure. A sharper one is a little more forgiving. So those are trimmed up nicely. All right. Those look pretty good. The details on those came out really well. I think those are gonna turn out quite nicely. I'm just gonna go ahead and trim up the outside edge. You don't have to do that. It's just, makes it a little nicer. Trimming on a curve is always a little tricky. So like the back here is actually the top where you poured the mold, so there's always going to be this slag around the edges, and it's important to trim those off so that the bottom of your mold stays level. If not, your mold's going to sit catty corner or something if it gets bunched up. So you definitely need to trim the back sides. The top side is not as necessary if it's just for you. But we are actually getting in the preparing to go to the diamond mine here in Arkansas this weekend, so I'm looking forward to that. Maybe I'll come back with a diamond. Who knows? Maybe I'll share a little bit of our adventure down there this weekend. But it's pretty nice out right now. It's feeling like early fall. It's like cool. It's rained a little bit. It's a good time to go to the diamond mine after it rains. So there is my finished mold. And these little tracks here, that's from glue, hot glue that was on the surface, and it basically just molded it. So yeah. And this is where my seam was for the cardboard. I didn't get quite enough glue inside that seam. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's going to, make a nice mold. The main point, the main part is that the inside of the mold turned out well. And we're going to put some resin in these, and we'll see how they turn out. Okay, so this is set for about an hour and a half or so. It's just set enough that it won't run out if you tilt it, but it is still quite sticky. So I'm going to mix up the next batch with the black for the background, and I always have extra molds. I didn't make these, I bought these, but I always have extra molds laying to the side so I can use up any unused resin. Um, just the same way as I did this one, added this one to fill up with the rest of this resin. But one little tip, trick, whatever you want to call it. So when you're filling your resin, if you're the kind of person that likes to mess with it, like to see how far it is, how far it's progressed, or if it's, you know, cured or whatever, what you can do is just kind of put a little drop on the side of your mold, and then you have something to test. Don't touch the resin with your fingers, but you can use other things. You can see just how far it's come. It's kind of at that long sticky stage. So yeah, a little drop on the side you can use to test with an implement of some kind. So I'm going to get this mixed up and do this pour. Okay, so these are cured now. I finished these up yesterday and thought we'd go ahead and unmold them. So look how cute that is. Like that. There's a little round one. Very cute. I love that extra fine glitter. It doesn't all just sink to the bottom. It stays kind of floaty in there. Some of it goes to the bottom, but most of it just kind of floats. Facets. So so that one turned out pretty good. Like that. It's very shiny. Turned out to be a good mold. Let's try these. Oh, check it out. She's pretty cute. So that was the original, and this is the molded version. Turned out pretty good. Pretty happy with that. I used kind of a white pearl, and then this is kind of like a black blue sparkle looking thing. So those turned out pretty cool. I'm pretty happy about that. Very cool. So yeah, those are pretty cool. I'm happy with those molds, and so cool. Yep, that's how you make some little molds. These, I would recommend this be molds for yourself. I mean, if you're gonna go that route, You'd want to be, if you're making them for other people, you'd want to be more careful with your glue and making sure that it's on the outside of the exterior mold housing. But other than that, that's basically how you make a quick, pretty nice mold. I mean, I can use these for a long time, so that's a good mold material. I like that Mold Star 15 slow. It works really well. It cures in about 4 hours, so it's a nice mold material. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. I want to thank everybody for all the subscriptions lately. I'm just like, I'm flabbergasted. I'm just shocked still about how fast this channel is growing, and it's all because of you guys, and I appreciate each and every one of you so much. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.